Because for 60s, get the service you deserve. We get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
As we usher in the holiday season, we want to express our gratitude and appreciation for the lessons that have allowed us to navigate an unprecedented year. We recognize the impact the pandemic has brought to the world and express our condolences to those who have suffered. We are focused on family and what matters most as a community. Our team at Security Title is proud of the work we do. May this holiday season bring your family renewed hope. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from Security Title.
The FDA alerting Americans about the recall of a brand of dog food linked to the deaths of 28 dogs. The brand Sport Mix, made by Midwestern Pet Foods, may contain lethal levels of a mold-produced toxin called aflatoxin. There are several symptoms, including fatigue and vomiting, but sometimes dogs show no symptoms at all. Some Sport Mix cat food may also be dangerous.
Vice President-elect Harris to Savannah Sunday, where there are concerns the early Democratic vote has been lagging. Republican Party leaders are concerned charges of voter fraud could depress Republican turnout. Northwest Georgia, where the GOP can generally hold up to an 8-2 advantage, shows the lowest numbers of early voting in the state. President Trump tweeted of Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp, "Nobody can be this stupid."
Fox's Steve Harrigan. The governor, however, has no control over the election. Here in New York, it's New Year's Eve, and things are going into high gear to ring in the new year and happily ring out 2020.
Former Community co-stars Ken Jeong and Joel McHale reunite to ring in the new year as hosts of Fox's New Year's Eve Toast and Roast 2021.
We're going to toast and roast the year that was.
And never speak of it again.
The two will be live from Times Square and be joined by Kelly Osbourne, Craig Robinson, and the Nasty Delicious Band, plus musical guests David Guetta, Leanne Rimes, Gloria Estefan, and John Legend, Green Day, and more. Part 1 airs 8 to 10 Eastern, and Part 2 picks up at 11 to 12:30. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Coffee Day. I'm Chelsea Nicholas, and I'm the co-chair for this year's G is for Giving, as well as a proud alumna of the University of Guam. G is for Giving is an annual campaign that kicks off on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving and runs through the end of the year. Known as Giving Tuesday, it is an international day of giving, and this year's theme is Weaving Community. On Guam, we know a little something about weaving community, as we're all intertwined and interconnected in the spirit of Enough Malik. When one of us thrives, the island thrives. This is why I support G is for Giving's mission to support scholarships, programs, and research. As an alumna, I know how difficult it is to balance going to school and worrying about how you're going to pay for school. In these uncertain times, students are even more at risk because of economic hardship beyond their control. G is for Giving aims to bridge that gap and take away at least some of the burden. For more information on how you can give, visit give.uog.edu or call the UOG Endowment Foundation at 735-2957. Have a happy and safe holiday.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu.
$5 footlong. Pile high with veggies.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You know, it seems like I've been saying that all year long, for a whole year. Could that be, Jose?
For an incredibly long whole year.
A whole year. Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to do it again next year. Before I launch into the program here, I want to do a little rumor control. And it's been reported to me that folks have seen Tina Rose Munya Barnes tooling around in a DeLorean. And I didn't know, you remember the DeLoreans about 20 years ago. They were supposed to be a very revolutionary car. I suppose there are a few around nowadays. You probably got to pay $500,000 to buy a DeLorean. But yeah, I saw Tina Rose Munya Barnes tooling around in a DeLorean. And I stopped and I asked her where she was going. And she said, I'm just on my way to pick up Michael Fox. When they first appeared years ago, and they've got even stupider in 2020. Next item, conspiracy theories of any dimension, subject, or ideology make facts and reality great again, like all of the stolen elections, maybe, huh? The mask debate. Masks help. Science has proved it. Are they a panacea? Of course not. If you don't wear one, it's on you. Next item, the term fake news. There never was such a thing. I got to help the real Joe Crew. You know, just look at Hunter Biden's laptop if you wanted to see some fake news. Yeah. Fake news. News, by definition, is truth-based accounts of events and reality, as opposed to propaganda, opinion, PR, fantasy, conspiracy, and lies, like you find in the New York Times on a daily basis. Next item, the position political strategist as a TV talking head. Strategizing for what? The next appearance on Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN? A good many of folks who appear above this chyron emigrated from losing campaigns or failed candidates themselves. And for 2 straight presidential elections, they've been as wrong as they've been right. So what exactly are they enlightening us about? Bring back the reporters. I agree with that. If there are any left, at least they will have something new to say when the lights go on. Next item, the phrase, turning the corner. We were told that was happening so many times, and it didn't. That no wonder it feels like we walked in circles throughout 2020. We were turning the corner on the virus. Remember that? Yeah. If you're on a block, a city block, and you turn the corner 4 times, you wind up exactly where you started. Next item, the call for, quote, normalcy. Boo, I'm not even going to go any farther than that. Next item, finally ascribing all things that happened to it's 2020. The calendar is about to turn. Pack that phrase in the lockbox and never speak it again. Well, you had some good points, but, you know, you couldn't overcome TDS for your entire list. So
You went full Karen on that.
yeah, he did. Yeah. All right.
Well, if he eliminates all that, he doesn't have a job.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go on to the Post. If you are dressed warmly and comfortably, if you have a blanket, if you're lying under a blanket, you may take it off, because this editorial will warm your tummy to the point that, yeah. Charitable givers showed up to help many in need despite the pandemic. The pandemic has been challenging for nonprofits that have taken on the responsibility of feeding the hungry, giving to children in need, helping the homeless, and bringing cheer to our elderly, or the Madamku.
Or?
Yeah. I guess we give some to the elderly and some para Madamku. I guess there must be a difference, huh? Traditional fundraisers such as galas, car watches, lunch plates, bingo, and other former go-to events for charitable causes had to be canceled this year. But as the weeks and days leading into Christmas have shown, individuals, families, civic organizations, and businesses stepped in to help. Pandemic aside, the giving continued. The events that people in need counted on for presents and warm meals still happened, even when it was more difficult for the organizers and the givers to achieve. Organizations learn to adapt. For those organizations and their generous, kind-hearted donors, no one can stop them from bringing the holiday cheer. Operation Christmas Stop had a massive haul of gifts this year, even though it was severely criticized by failed candidate Robert Underwood. Gifts were dropped by parachute to the islands in Palau from Andersen Air Force Base. Toys, food, clothes, tools were among the gifts. The additional challenge this year on top of the Air Force planes and crews conducting low-altitude flights was to safely sanitize gifts to ensure the islanders who received them were not exposed to Wuhan virus. While the Federated States of Micronesia declined to receive the group gifts through Operation Christmas Star, this year Palau welcomed them. Quote, "We will continue the world's longest-running humanitarian effort on Earth for many years to come, thanks to the tremendous dedication to the region by the U.S. Air Force, now joined by their colleagues in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan." Operation Christmas Drop volunteer Bruce Best stated recently, "The Micronesians are forever grateful. This is Christmas for the communities on over 55 of the most remote islands on Earth, like Saipan." Yeah, you remember that girl? Never saw any gifts dropped on Saipan, and Saipan is so remote.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
That was a bad pilot.
"We will continue the world's as you were." The Salvation Army Corps had challenges this year. Its yearly bell-ringing event to help raise funds for its programs was nearly impossible to carry out with the usual brigade of volunteers. This time, only a handful of bell ringers showed up out of concern about Wuhan virus. The Corps also could not host its holiday feast for people in need because of the virus. Still, the Salvation Army was able to feed the hungry. Instead of hosting a feast, meals were boxed for each individual, and hundreds of lunch boxes were delivered to those in need of a hot meal. One of the largest donors of food this year was Quality Distributors, which donates every year to the Salvation Army's food bank in Tianjin. The donation included 10,000 pounds of rice, 4,800 cans of luncheon meat, turkeys, hams, paper products, and assorted snacks. The Marine Corps' Toys for Tot program also overcame challenges. Despite the pandemic, quote, "Despite the pandemic, our campaign was able to raise 9,817 toys with all the overwhelming support we received from the local community, our partners, and the Marine Toys for Tots Foundation," said Colonel Bradley McGrath, commanding officer of the Marine base. That's hundreds of toys more than last year, when about 9,100 toys were provided for the Salvation Army to distribute. There was a holiday project that did get canceled. The Sugar Plum Tree program, which provides children with gifts, was not available this year, but the parishioners of Santa Teresita Church stepped forward to wrap 200 gifts for children who would have benefited. Kevin Delgado, the church's program director, and Manilo vice mayor-elect, said that in the previous years the church used to be a satellite for the Sugar Plum Tree. The recipients were anonymous and the givers came from all walks of life. There are countless other givers who took the time and resources to make difference this holiday season. Thank you to all who had the heart to give. Here's hoping someday, as the economy improves and more people will get their jobs back, many of today's recipients will be able to take pride and be able to pay it forward. Yeah, another in a long series of feel-good editorials, but it is Christmas. And I had to confess yesterday, it's even hard to scrape together a card for Tall Tales because people just aren't fighting with each other very much this time of the year. But we'll struggle on forward. So let's go from there to the card. And I've got some program notes here. Once again, the program notes and the card are prominently displayed on Jungle Watch, which you can find on the net at junglewatch.info. Program notes for today. The governor's latest executive order allows all businesses to open except those operated by Thomas Pinehoff. I got more on that today. The governor tests our credulity concerning furloughs. And this is what the governor said about furloughs. She said, no need for GovGuam furlough. And how did we title the page today, Jose?
Today's title is Governor Leon Guerrero reassures the Guam public, contrary to recent reports, my paycheck is secure.
Yeah, that'll make it make the holidays nice for everyone. And then we've got GVB and Clint and Adrian Cruz and Manure, and the marijuana wars continue. And then I've got some holdovers from earlier cards. So let's start out here with Pinehoff versus the governor. This is from the Post. Bars and taverns are now also looking forward to welcoming back customers in early 2021 with safety protocols, especially now that the governor gave the green light for bingo halls, game rooms, amusement parks, and similar businesses to open on January 1. Crystal Paco San Augustine, formerly known as Crystal Paco, the governor's press secretary on Wednesday said the governor wants to revisit bars and nightclubs after the holiday season. No sense letting the bars open at the time of the year when they probably could make their most profits. The activities in bars and nightclubs are inherently interactive and, combined with alcohol, lends itself to letting our guard down. Now, it's interesting that the two items on the card here deal with alcohol, letting our guard down, etc., and marijuana. Guam bingo halls are frequented by the elderly, among the most vulnerable population to get sick from Wuhan virus. The bar owner said, there is no more medical or scientific logic or sense in all the decision-making, bar owner Thomas Pinehoff said. We, the bar community, expected nothing else. For the most part of 2020, bars have been closed as Governor Leon Guerrero ordered to help stop the spread of the virus that causes Wuhan virus. That sentence didn't read right. They don't know how to identify this virus that's causing all the problems. Pinehoff, who operates Live House in Tuman and the Shady Lady in Dedido, also represents owners of dozens of bars and taverns and other small businesses. Our owners group is now 45 strong. Dozens. Let's see, that's 3 short of 4 dozen. Yeah. They are all not very happy, he said Wednesday. The management of Wild Bill's Bar in Tamuning on Wednesday said while they perfectly understand the government's hesitation to allow bars to reopen, it's strange when you allow bingo parlors and game rooms to operate. I should have looked this up before the program, but some famous Brit said something along the lines of, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin. So not wanting to be seen as stricken with the hobgoblin of little minds, Lou is not being consistent here at all. You can't stick her with that one. While Bill seeks to reopen, welcome back its loyal customers and re-employ its workers. A long government-ordered closure, the management said, is very impactful. I'd have never thought of that in a million years. We're going to reopen when the government allows us to reopen. Unfortunately, not all of us will be able to. Some already closed for good. Pinoff said the federally funded program that is supposed to help small businesses such as bars has been slow to release the needed assistance. The $3 million program, which seeks an additional $1.7 million, pays up to 2 months of past due commercial rent for local businesses. Pinoff said the program only pays up to 2 months' worth of rent, while GovGuam forced bars to close from March to December, except for a few weeks in between. Pinoff, who also sued the governor and GovGuam over orders of business closures, said bar owners are discussing lifetime bans for the governor, lieutenant governor, their medical advisors, economic advisors, and other government officials from their bars. Talk about cancel culture. Now, I wonder if that means they're not going to be allowed to come into the bars. So there will be someone at the door of the 45 bars checking IDs. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. You're the governor. You can't come in.
You're not on the list.
Yeah, you're not allowed. No more political fundraisers when they need it, Pinoff said. They can stay with their big business friends and do their fundraisers and get a beer at the large corporation hotels. Little boycott type action here, huh? Restaurants have been allowed to reopen initially for outdoor dining, but as of this week, bars said there's no plan to recommend allowing them to also operate using outdoor spaces. Okay, let's take a short break here.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Buying a house, apartment, or condo? Selling your home or property? Or maybe you're renting a house, apartment, or condo on Guam. Whatever your real estate needs are, you can count on the professionals at Horizon Properties to take care of you. Call Horizon Properties at 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonproperties.com or follow them on Facebook at Horizon Properties Guam. Maria Miller and the professionals at Horizon Properties. All you need to know in real estate. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about this idea of outdoor dining and outdoor drinking. You know, outdoor drinking has more of a history than outdoor dining. We've had several bars, Barney's Beach Bar, that one down at Gun Beach, probably a couple I can't even remember, Pirates Cove, where the idea was to be outside with your cold beer in your hand, enjoying yourself. So, on the other hand, outdoor eating al fresco, as the term goes.
That's a picnic.
Yeah, that's a picnic, and it's never, really, it has never really taken a hold on in Guam. I can't remember any restaurants that featured outdoor dining. I think maybe there you go. Yeah,
that's what I was trying to swat.
Yeah. So it really doesn't make any sense that we're allowing outdoor dining, but we're not allowing these guys in the alcohol business to serve alcoholic drinks outside. Panoff certainly has good reason to be angry and to not want to see certain people in his bar, if he can ever allow any people in his bar. And then the PNC covered the same story. As in most communities, bars were a cornerstone of the nightlife in Tumon, as well as a major part of the tourist industry. The governor's latest executive order erased restrictions on businesses in a variety of sectors, but not bars. Bar owners on Guam have been vocal in their desire to reopen, and with businesses such as game rooms and amusement parks allowed to reopen, why are they still left out? As in most communities, bars were a cornerstone of nightlife in Tumon, as well as a major part of the tourism industry. Like most businesses, they were closed down in the early days of the pandemic before being allowed to open at 25% capacity in June. The governor, however, would close them down again before the summer was out. Game rooms and restaurants can now open, so why not bars? The governor's latest executive order eased restrictions on businesses in a variety of sectors, but not bars. Bar owners on Guam have been vocal in their desire to reopen, and with businesses such as game rooms and amusement parks allowed to reopen, why are they still left out? Local bar owners held protests against the governor's policies in response. They protested first against the 25% limitation on capacity, and then against the shutdown a few weeks later. Thomas Pinehoff, this guy is beginning to be something of a celebrity, right? Thomas Pinehoff. Thomas Pinehoff, the owner of Live House and the Shady Lady, even went so far as to sue the governor. The litigation is still ongoing. Many have argued that people can social distance in bars just as easily as in restaurants. Since 6 feet apart in a bar is the same 6 feet apart in a restaurant, bar owners argue that keeping bars closed when restaurants are allowed to operate and even accept dine-in customers doesn't make sense. Crystal Paco San Augustine, formerly known as Crystal Paco, spokesperson for the governor's office, said that what makes bars different from restaurants is the way people tend to behave in bars.
Oh, it's behavior.
Uh-huh. And, of course, the Red Queen takes great interest in how people behave. And if they misbehave, you know what happens to them, Jose?
Oh, yeah.
Off with their heads. Inherently, bars, nightclubs, and taverns, activities that occur there are interactive. And so, by their nature, you let your guard down. What do you do when you're inside a bar? You're removing your mask and you're drinking a drink. Well, this Crystal Paco's got a mind like a steel trap, doesn't she? She's got it all figured out. Yeah, you're removing your mask, you're drinking a drink, and we all know the effects of alcohol and our decision-making processes. So that's something we really want to revisit after the holiday season, Paco San Augustine said. Now that's irrefutable logic, isn't it? Yeah. Paco San Augustine added, as you know, just in a few days, we're about to celebrate New Year's Day, and New Year's Eve is tomorrow. The legislature should have consulted with her when they put together the Michael J. Fox ad. She seems to have a pretty good handle on the calendar. And so we know that the celebrations that occur with those types of big holidays could impact our car store, could impact positivity, and could change the course of our response in our current state and all the progress we've made over the last few weeks. Yeah. Well, I'm sure glad the bars are going to be closed on New Year's Eve. You know, back in my drinking days, I never liked to go out on New Year's Eve anyhow. You know why? It was amateur night.
That's true.
Yeah. And so we want to revisit bars, taverns, and nightclubs, but after the holidays. The aftermath of the holiday season will also affect P-Core criteria. Dr. Felix Cabrera told PNC News that revisions to P-Core criteria were discussed during a meeting at AdLoop yesterday morning. Who covered that meeting? Was that on TV? I guess we could get a copy of the minutes from the... No, we can't. Star Chamber. But any revisions to P-Core criteria as well as P-Core status will have to wait until after the holidays. Boy, we're just not going to do anything until after the holidays. The last thing we'd want to do is return to P-Core 2 status and then see a spike and revert back immediately to P-Core 1. So again, the holidays could have adverse effects on our progress. We'll continue to monitor that for the next 2 weeks or so. Once we're able to confidently say there were no adverse reactions or effects of the holiday season, we could definitely revisit the P-Core status and returning to P-Core 2 status, Paco San Augustine said. Yeah, boy, how I learned to stop worrying and be afraid of Christmas and New Year's, huh? I never realized that Christmas and New Year's were such a threat to public health. I bet you Santa Claus isn't going to like this. All right.
He's still in quarantine.
Yeah, because he visited Guam. He's still in quarantine.
He doesn't want to leave, though.
Yeah. Okay, well, next we've got the governor of Guam versus reality. Governor's a headline in today's Post, and the lead story in today's Post. Governor, no need for Gov Guam furlough. Government Guam employees and officials' jobs are safe, Governor Leon Guerrero assured them Wednesday. And, in an interview with the Post, the governor said there's no need to set Gov Guam's multi-stage, week-long notification process in motion. You know why there's no need for that, Jose? Because it's been repealed.
Right.
Yeah. So you could, government employees could be laid off tomorrow. There's no more 6 weeks notice required. That statute has been repealed. The governor made the comment when asked if she'd considered following the example set by Hawaii's state government, which is planning to implement furloughs because revenues have come up short. Hawaii, like Guam, relies on military spending and tourism as its main economic pillars. I've been following this very closely. There's an email publication called Civil Beat that is kind of the candid news of Hawaii. They put a lot of stuff in the Civil Beat that never seems to make it to the Honolulu, the mainstream media in Honolulu. And Governor Iggy has said that it looks like government employees are going to have two days of furlough every month because their revenue is short.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Doesn't, does it? No. Another publication that I read called The Grassroots said what he's doing is laying the foundation for a tax increase. Which is better, laying off government employees or raising taxes? That's an easy one for most public officials, right? Okay, back to the editor, or back to the news story. The reality is that we are not at that point. We need to roll out. We're not at that point. And also, I don't think it will get there because, I thought this was out almost every day, is that we get the financial assistance coming in, right? I wonder what language the governor's speaking here in this quote. It's kind of like English, but not exactly. Let's try it again. The reality is that we are not at that point where we need to roll out. We're not at that point. And I also don't think it will get there because, I thought this out almost every day, is that we get the financial assistance coming in, right? So it was a question. No wonder I couldn't get a handle on it.
At this point, the reporter's just nodding his head.
Yeah.
Trying to get it over with.
And then she has another sentence here. And then we're going to start bringing back our tourists, perhaps to see the novelty of a governor who makes public statements like the one that's printed here in the Post. That should be a good tourist attraction, right? And then more Governor Leon Guerrero. And as I've said before, my purpose is to make sure people are employed. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. And make sure that people have some financial assistance so that they can buy food for their family, so they can, put money also back into the economy, so our local businesses continue to function and be viable. And the one way to do that is to keep as many people employed as possible. Now, I think, trying to decipher this, when she's talking about people employed, she's not talking about people.
Or Tom Pinoff.
She's talking about a very select group of people, that group being Government of Guam employees. So let me go back and read this and translate a little bit. I'm not going to do the tongue twister. I'll just leave that for later.
You do the voice?
Yeah. And as I have said before, my purpose is to make sure GovGuam employees are employed and make sure that GovGuam employees have some financial assistance so that GovGuam employees can buy food for GovGuam employees' families, so that GovGuam employees can, put money also back into the economy, so our local businesses can continue to function and be viable. And the way to do that is to keep as many GovGuam employed as possible. That's what she's really saying. So you guys out there in private business, I'm doing my part. I'm keeping everybody on the Government of Guam payroll so they can go out and spend money in your businesses. If I didn't do that, where would they get the money to spend in your businesses? Now, you 35,000 people that don't work for Government of Guam, you should realize that I'm really trying to help you because I'm pumping money into the economy by means of GovGuam employees. And after all, it's the least I can do.
Let me help you by helping me.
Yeah. She said GovGuam finances are not in dire straits because of the federal government's various forms of assistance during this pandemic. Yeah, Governor, good call, but that's over. All right, let me take a short break here. Maybe I'll try the tongue twister one more time before, I don't know. Let's take a short break. Let me think about that.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mona Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mona Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today. Like listen to us, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
Coffee Day. I'm Chelsea Nicholas, and I'm the co-chair for this year's G is for Giving, as well as a proud alumna of the University of Guam. G is for Giving is an annual campaign that kicks off on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving and runs through the end of the year. Known as Giving Tuesday, it is an international day of giving, and this year's theme is Weaving Community. On Guam, we know a little something about weaving community, as we're all intertwined and interconnected in the spirit of Enough Malik. When one of us thrives, the island thrives. This is why I support G is for Giving's mission to support scholarships, programs, and research. As an alumna, I know how difficult it is to balance going to school and worrying about how you're going to pay for school. In these uncertain times, students are even more at risk because of economic hardship beyond their control. G is for Giving aims to bridge that gap and take away at least some of the burden. For more information on how you can give, visit give.uog.edu or call the UOG Endowment Foundation at 735-2957. Have a happy and safe holiday.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and Mezcla Dos are open for takeout and delivery services. More details, call the Hagatna location at 479-2652 or Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon at 646-6295. Get your Mezcla fix at the comfort of your home.
So, okay, here we are, back again, Tall Tales. I've been trying to deal with the governor's circumlocution that she calls communication to give us all comfort that she's going to keep the government of Guam payroll humming. And I've got a caller here in the green room who wants to comment on that. It's a pretty regular caller. Usually makes a lot of sense. So go for it, Kellis.
So what I just realized, like one of her first laws that she signed right out of the bat was, legalizing marijuana. So maybe if you just take a big hit off of a fatty, and that might be where she is right now, and then you read it, it'll make sense.
Yeah, good point.
But what I remember I called once before, but I was sitting there thinking, for all the non-essential GovGuam employees that have been receiving their pay this whole time while not working, couldn't they have been furloughed back then? And then with this, if they were furloughed, they could have been on the same program that everyone else that was furloughed and got money. And then GovGuam would have had more money to use to give to GMH or whatnot.
Absolutely.
But I think it makes too much sense because she can honestly say that she's doing the very least she can do for us by not furloughing non-essential GovGuam employees that will not be at work but will receive a paycheck. That's where I find difficulty.
It's the least she could do. Yeah.
The very.
Yeah.
But I just, like I said, maybe if you get Joe to bubble up that stuff and then you read it, it'll make more sense.
Yeah, maybe I'll try it that way. Yeah. Good call, Kellis.
Okay, you have a good day, Judge. Peace. Happy New Year.
See you next year.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe I should.
I don't think that's going to happen.
It's not going to happen, huh?
But it sounds like a great idea.
It does, yeah. So, you know, we paid people to stay home, and because they were non-essential. And now we're talking about. It's very clear if you stop and analyze what the governor's saying. I'm going to keep all the government of Guam people on the payroll. Have no fear. And some of that, the money that I pump into the economy, that way will help the private sector. And she didn't add her famous tagline, it's the least she could do, but in her case, it is the least she could do. Instead of looking at something other than, and then of course, you know, I think there's this popular feeling amongst government employees that the governor's, any governor, this one or any other governor, number one duty is to look out for the employees of the government of Guam. That's what they're supposed to do. So, stopping here for a moment, I'm going to go back and analyze, you know, what she has committed herself to. And she has committed herself to not doing anything. And as I mentioned, the statute on layoffs, the notice for layoffs, has been repealed. So she could start layoffs tomorrow if she wanted to. Of course, we can't expect her to know the law until after she tries to implement it. That's when she finds these things out, right? So, you know, there's this danger for politicians and our population, maybe in all populations, and that is that if you put on your dung-colored glasses and you look way down the road and you say, I can see something that's bad that's going to happen down there, and we need to start preparing for it now. When the bad thing happens, you know who they blame? The guy with the dung-colored glasses. Because no one would have thought about it had it not been him. So, you know, you say, you know, we really haven't prepared our schools to deal with typhoons. And, you know, there's no typhoon in the area right now, but we need to start hardening our schools today. And 6 months from now, a typhoon comes in. Hey, you know, Klitzkie, he's talking about typhoons. Well, that works with typhoons, but I think it's even more apparent when it comes to governmental action. So for the governor to say, I have 2 or 3 contingency plans in place to deal with a situation when the revenue shortfall reaches a certain point. I want to assure everyone that I know what government services must be prioritized. I will make sure that we are providing those services. We're going to have to cut some other services, and there will have to be some furloughs, some layoffs. Some people are not going to get a paycheck because we just can't afford it. To say that, I mean, even if there's no way of avoiding that circumstance, when it happens, there's going to be hell to pay for that governor. So my sense is this, that it may very well be that she sat down with the gnomes of BBMR. If you remember the gnomes of Zurich, we have the gnomes of BBMR, the likes of Lester Carlson and his crew of number crunchers. She may have sat down with the gnomes of BBMR who have told her, Governor, you know, by April, we're not going to be able to make payroll. We've got to start doing something. We've got to start cutting back. We should amend the budget. I'll come back to this right after the big halftime show that we've all been waiting for.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A deliberate act of sabotage. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. 500 doses of Moderna's vaccine that had to be trashed Saturday were deliberately left out of the refrigerator by a worker at the Aurora Medical Center in Grafton. Dr. Robert Citronberg tells Fox 6 Milwaukee the hospital is reviewing all its practices.
It can happen anywhere, but we are going to work especially hard to make sure it does not happen in our healthcare system again.
The hospital fired the worker but did not identify him or her and gave no motive for the worker's actions. The coronavirus is out of control in some areas like Southern California, where hospitals are overflowing and running out of staff and supplies. Nationally, COVID's killed more than 342,000 people. A vote on increasing stimulus payments to $2,000 stalls in the Senate after Majority Leader Mitch McConnell ties the measure to two other demands from the president. Increasing the payments is a rare issue on which the president and Democrats, like Senator Bernie Sanders, agree.
I think he is correct in saying that we are living in a terrible, terrible economic moment for tens of millions of working class families. We fought very hard to get the $600 direct payment. Trump is right in saying that's not enough. We need to go to $2,000. I didn't say he was a visionary. He's right on this issue.
And Nashville police admit they were alerted about the Christmas Day bomber, Anthony Warner, last year.
We know now that police did receive warning that Anthony Warner was building bombs. An incident report from 2019 says a woman identified as a girlfriend of Warner made statements that her boyfriend was building bombs in an RV trailer at his residence. Police knocked on his door, didn't get an answer.
Fox's Mike Tobin. America's listening to Fox News.
As we usher in the holiday season, we want to express our gratitude and appreciation for the lessons that have allowed us to navigate an unprecedented year. We recognize the impact the pandemic has brought to the world and express our condolences to those who have suffered. We are focused on family and what matters most as a community. Our team at Security Title is proud of the work we do. May this holiday season bring your family renewed hope. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from Security Title.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
One Kentucky police officer is fighting back over attempts to fire him over the death of Breonna Taylor.
Protesters continue to demand punishment for 3 Louisville police officers involved in the raid and death of Breonna Taylor. Her killing has become a key issue in the Black Lives Matter movement. So far, one officer, Brett Hankinson, has been fired. He's also been charged with wanton endangerment. This week, officers Miles Cosgrove and Joshua Janus were informed of an effort to terminate their employment with the police department, but an attorney for Janus is pushing back, saying the detective did nothing wrong. The 3 were serving a no-knock warrant back in March when Taylor's boyfriend opened fire. The officers reportedly shot back, fatally striking Taylor. Tom Graham, Fox News.
One-time accused child killer Casey Anthony may have started a private investigation company in Florida. Public records show she filed paperwork on December 14th to start a PI firm called Case Research and Consulting Services, LLC. Anthony was acquitted of the 2008 murder of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee. And a blowout in the Cotton Bowl Wednesday night.
The Sooners picked apart the Gators for the Cotton Bowl win.
Goes to the near side, and it is picked off. Norwood, pick 6.
Call courtesy of ESPN. Trade Norwood with the interception return for the touchdown. Oklahoma's defense would intercept Kyle Trask 3 times. The 6th in the nation Sooners dominate number 7 Florida 55-20 for the win in the Cotton Bowl Classic. That victory snapping a 3 bowl game skid for Oklahoma while giving Sooners head coach Lincoln Riley his first bowl victory. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And stocks rose Wednesday with the Dow posting its 13th record close. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Mana Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mana Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today. Like listen to us, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience. Buying a house, apartment, or condo, selling your home or property, or maybe you're renting a house, apartment, or condo on Guam. Whatever your real estate needs are, you can count on the professionals at Horizon Properties to take care of you. Call Horizon Properties at 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonproperties.com or follow them on Facebook at Horizon Properties Guam. Maria Miller and the professionals at Horizon Properties. All you need to know in real estate.
$5 foot long. Pile high with veggies.
They're back. Any foot long is a $5 foot long when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
What a great halftime show. With all that cannon fire, it's as though New Year's Eve came at 5 o'clock here on Tall Tales.
I have word that we're the only fireworks show on island.
Absolutely. As usual, Tall Tales is the pioneer. All right, I'm working on a story here that ran in the Post, the headline of which is Governor, No Need for Gov Guam Furloughs. And I wound up at this point before the halftime show. Governor said Gov Guam finances are not in dire straits because of the federal government's various forms of assistance during this pandemic. The article goes on to say the pandemic relief package that was signed into law a few days ago after Congress overrode Donald Trump's rejection of it. I guess it is right, yeah. No, wait. Congress didn't override anything. The president changed his mind. There's an error here in your story, Guam Daily Post, so I'll read it. I'll correct it as I read it. The pandemic relief program package that was signed into law a few days ago by Donald Trump, president, provides a $600 cash benefit for each taxpayer making less than $75,000, an additional $600 for child dependents below the age of 17. The package also provides a $300 weekly unemployment benefit through March. The recently enacted pandemic relief that Congress authorized does not contain direct assistance to territory and state governments like Guam. So, Governor, Here's what the governor said. Our finances are not in dire straits because the federal government's various forms of assistance during, well, that's over. The governor, however, said she holds on to hope that once President-elect Joe Biden is seated at the White House, he will work on another pandemic relief package to help out local governments like Guam's. So let's read two key parts of the story together. The reality is, no, I'm not going to try that one again. The governor said there's no need to set GovGuam's multi-stage, weeks-long further notification process in motion. The governor made the comment when asked if she'd consider following the example of Hawaii. The reality is that we're not at that point. So we're not at that point now. I'll go back into the article and tell you why we're not at that point. The governor said she holds on to hope that once President-elect Joe Biden is seated, he will work on another pandemic relief package. So the reason that she does that we don't have to concern ourselves with furloughs is because of her hope. She has a hope. I suspect if there had been a really top-notch photographer on the job, he would have been able to capture the governor's fingers in this posture. We don't have to worry. You know, our finances are okay. Federal government help can get us through. We don't need to worry about furloughs. I have high hopes that things are going to work out right. We don't need to pay somebody $90,000 a year to have high hopes. We can find people who do that for nothing. That's not what governors do. Governors are paid to look at the so-called worst case scenario, to have a plan and a plan B, to keep your fingers, to close your eyes, tiptoe, and keep your fingers crossed is not a plan.
Maybe she's hoping she can borrow the speaker's DeLorean.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Just in case, it's a contingency.
Yeah, if we see the governor, instead of driving around with her high-priced GMC, we see her driving a DeLorean, we'll know what's going on.
Furloughs in the future.
Yeah. Now she substantiates what she says here. Here's a quote. I don't believe this oncoming president will abandon his people. I take so much comfort from that. You know, our economy is in a tank, and it has been in the tank for months. And the reason that it's in the tank is because the governor has been overreacting to the Wuhan virus, dealing with it, instead of dealing with it with a scalpel, she's using a meat axe. And then she says, and then she comes out and tells us, don't worry, I'm going to keep all the government of Guam employees on the payroll. Money's not a problem because I hope that Joe Biden is going to take care of us because he's that kind of guy.
He's Guamanian?
Yeah.
Democrats and identity crisis here.
Exactly. I don't believe this oncoming president will abandon his people, the governor said. Yeah. You know, talk about leadership. You know, you go back to Winston Churchill, I have nothing to offer you but blood, sweat, and tears. Or, yeah, I just kind of hope that, you know, you guys all get together and say, let's go out there and win one for the Gipper. Yeah,
president.
great halftime speeches by Governor Lulian Guerrero. I think we can beat these guys. We don't have to worry too much about fundamentals or blocking and tackling. I hope that they're going to fumble a lot and we'll recover the fumbles, and that's how we're going to beat them. Yeah. Coach Leon Guerrero. She said part of her optimism stems from the developments in South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. Travelers in those markets want to resume vacation trips to Guam, she said, possibly as soon as within the first 6 months to a year or a year and a half from now. Now, that's a pretty accurate measurement. I'm pretty optimistic that they'll be coming back within 6 months or a year or a year and a half. Quite a difference between a year and a half and 6 months. The government of Guam missed its general fund revenue target by $8.2 million, and most of its special revenue funds hit the red during the first 2 months of fiscal 2021, according to GovGuam data. GovGuam projected it would collect $172 million plus in revenue in October, November, but ended up 4.8% short. The decline was mostly in business privilege tax collection. Well, you can't blame the governor for that. She kept people on the GovGuam payroll who would spend their money in establishments that paid gross receipts tax. The governor said she monitors GovGuam's cash flow. I'm impressed. I monitor our cash flow every day, and our cash flow is pretty steady, she said. Well, if you don't feel better after reading that front page story, I don't know what it's going to take. You know, maybe the only thing that's going to help is when the governor will open the bars and you can go down to Tom Pineau's place and have a couple of stiff ones. Maybe that'll make you feel better. Because if what she told the Post doesn't make you feel better, you got a problem.
They got to go spend all that government money somewhere.
Absolutely. Okay, next item on the card is GVB versus Clint, the never-ending marijuana wars. And the headline of the story is, "We're two groups wanting to do what's best for Guam." I only counted one group wanting to do that. I counted the other group as wanting to win the argument. Now, I should be the last guy in the world to ever fault somebody for wanting to win the argument. I like to argue. I like to win arguments. I confess, I'm guilty as charged. But if you look at the positions taken by people like Jerry Paris, the former Governor Gutierrez, Mary Torres, you know, they're coming forward and they're saying, hey, look, take your marijuana, do whatever, but let's not spoil our tourist industry in the process. Clint and Adrian Cruz don't seem to come from that same policy orientation. Both of them are really good with the cheap shot, and they both seem to be more interested in winning the argument than doing what's best for the people of Guam. A clash of views on whether allowing cannabis in Tuman will bring in more or fewer students to Guam continues, with the authorization, as you were the author of the legalization bill, Senator Clinton Rigel, and Guam Visitors Bureau officials raising more points and counterpoints. Rigel said in the same year that adult cannabis use became legal, Guam's tourist arrivals reached record high 1.6 million in fiscal year 2019, more than likely because cannabis became legal. Yeah, no getting around it. If we had only legalized cannabis the year before, our arrivals would have soared.
What's the question? The statement, show us the stats?
Yeah. Despite record tourism numbers after the legalization of cannabis, this is a quote again from Clint. Despite record tourism numbers after the legalization of cannabis, GVB is again stoking unfounded fears that cannabis will hurt tourism all the while ignoring the data in front of them. A day earlier, GVB board chairman Sonny Atta and Vice President Jerry Paris addressed tourist industry representatives, reiterating that Guam stands to lose more than $500 million in tourism revenue and nearly 5,000 jobs when tourists from Japan, Korea, Taiwan stop coming because of cannabis. Now, when I get to the end of this, if you out there in our international radio listening audience want to get ahead of the program, Google Pascal's wager, because I'm going to bring Pascal's wager decision-making technique to what we're dealing with here. I'm making a note just so I don't forget. All right, so going back to the article, we can't keep screwing around debating if cannabis should be allowed in hotel zones or not, Atta said. Our suppliers of tourists have made it very clear it will negatively affect arrivals. The Cannabis Control Board will finalize the rules in 2021 before forwarding them to the legislature for final approval. Paris said despite their differences, the GVB board and the Cannabis Control Board are not adversaries. Jerry Paris, where have you been? Maybe you're not an adversary, but the other side, nobody told the guys on the other side that. Nobody told Adrian Cruz with his super sense of smell, his ability to detect all kinds of odors in the air like hypocrisy. Or Clint, for that matter. Just so people don't understand the nature of our discussions, we are not adversaries, but rather we're two groups wanting to do what's best for Guam under the new law, Paris said. But GVB is also now looking to the 36th Guam legislature to consider its concerns and not allow cannabis in the tourist district of Tumum. Senators will have a final say on the rules before implementation. Paris said the numbers showing a massive negative impact on Asian tourist arrivals are based on a GVB assessment done this month, focused on the impact of cannabis on the East Asian core tourist markets of Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. This comes months after GVB, as required by law, commissioned an economic study for the Cannabis Control Board. Paris acknowledged the first study's findings that cannabis industry would generate additional revenue for Guam and was more focused on a, quote, Western consumer mindset. That study, paid for GVB, showed that the cannabis industry would generate an estimated $133 million in additional revenue, Rigel said. He said if concerns brought up this month were of dire urgency to GVB, it's puzzling why they were unable to address them in this study that they were in charge of before they submitted it to the board for adoption. Now they're claiming that cannabis will hurt the tourist industry, a statement that directly contradicts their own work, the work of the dedicated researchers they commissioned, and overall projects. Their unfounded opposition to the growth of this industry, the growth of this industry. And mark that. And the visitor industry alike, Rigel said. The senator said it seems GVB paid a company to conduct a study, but they didn't like the outcome of the study they paid for, so they made up their own numbers. What a waste of taxpayer dollars. Back to Jerry Paris. Paris said Despite their differences, the GVB board and the Cannabis Control Board are not adversaries. Yeah. The senator said it seems GVB paid a company to conduct a study, but they didn't like the outcome, so they made up their own numbers. What a waste of taxpayer dollars, Rigel said. Paris said the recent GVB study contains data, assumptions, and detailed analysis that supports GVB's position. Just recently, Paris said, GVB conducted a Korean consumer survey asking about cannabis and travel with 785 survey respondents and a 3.4% margin of error. As of December 28, the survey shows 2.4% would travel to a destination with legalized cannabis as presented at the general membership meeting. So 2.4% of the Korean tourist market would come here. To add to this argument, the U.S. Attorney for Guam, Sean Anderson, says that the U.S. government is not going to. Let me see if I can find the right words here. He's going to instruction from Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, who instructed federal prosecutors to move forward with prosecuting marijuana crimes and weigh all relevant considerations, including federal law enforcement priorities set by the Attorney General, the seriousness of the crime, etc. In Sessions' memo, several U.S. attorneys throughout the country have issued their own memos to federal law enforcement officers with their own instructions. Guam and the CNMI have no such memorandum issued by the U.S. Attorney. From Mr. Anderson, we rely on principles of federal prosecution. That's Justice Manual 9-27-000 in deciding whether to prosecute criminal offenses, including any related to marijuana. Mr. Anderson told, this is from Candid News, by the way. In addition, on January 4, 2018, I already read that. This means that the United States Attorney is not limiting the purview of his federal prosecutors have over prosecution of marijuana crimes. Both the medical and adult use cannabis industries have yet to take off on Guam due to the local government's gross inability to do anything right. It remains to be seen how far federal prosecutors will go to enforce the Controlled Substances Act as it relates to marijuana. And then there's another story here. This is from KUAM, or maybe it's the Post. I'm sorry, it's the PNC. The Guam Cannabis Control Board took a huge step in finalizing a critical section of the rules. Article 3 of the draft rules relative to cannabis cultivation saw some amendments before it was unanimously adopted by the board. The specific section covers a wide variety of approved and not approved amendments or additives, as well as what pesticides may be used. Here's a quote. In the bigger picture, this is actually a help and a service to the farmer, because what it does now is, who wants to buy a pesticide and waste all that money? If it doesn't really address your problem, Cannabis Control Board member Adrian Cruz. And so the Department of Agriculture wants to help you to make sure that you're using the correct thing for the correct problem that you're having. Now, unlike the last time he was quoted, Cruz didn't get into natural manure, which I always thought was his line of expertise. Well, it's worth a try anyhow. So, okay, let's break for the seventh inning stretch, and I'll come back to my Pascal wager type analysis.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagatna and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field in Chicago. I was on the center field bleachers and I didn't see anybody out there smoking marijuana. I didn't see any stacks of manure either. Perhaps Adrian Cruz has not made the necessary prescription for the grounds on Wrigley Field as to how to keep that grass nice and green. Okay, so Pascal's wager type analysis. Let's start out with marijuana. Marijuana is was illegal according to Guam law. In fact, when the Organic Act was passed, there was even a section in the Organic Act that was a prohibition against marijuana cultivation, sale, use, etc. It was taken out of the Organic Act, but it was still illegal under local law. Later on, it was decriminalized so that people who were caught with small quantities of marijuana were guilty only of a violation, something like a traffic ticket. Apparently, there are a large number of people on Guam that like to smoke marijuana. It makes you feel good. Like a lot of people on Guam like to drink beer or whiskey or gin or whatever. Unfortunately, a lot of people on Guam like to take ice, heroin, and cocaine. So a lot of people like to use marijuana, which had the stigma of illegality attached to it. Still does. I've got a little note here from one of our loyal tailgaters, Lynn McAfee, who says, the military still has a no tolerance policy for marijuana. Federally, it's still illegal. If we have federal employees and military members at parks, beaches, down in Tumum, and other places around the island, and get secondhand transfer onto themselves or absorbed into their skin and test positive, they will be discharged out. There is no tolerance policy, no questions asked. You test positive, you're done. This puts military members and federal government employees in a very sticky situation, to the point where many will not want to come out onto the island to stop, to shop, or visit locations and sites and spend money. So start out with a proposition that there was a stigma attached to marijuana. Well, one way to destigmatize anything is to make it legal. So in the beginning, we were all informed of the miracles of medical marijuana. Medical marijuana was good for people who were epileptic, for pain control, and on and on and on. Chronic dandruff, fallen arches, you name it. Medical marijuana was the answer. So this kind of softened up the general public to the acceptance of marijuana. People that didn't use marijuana, didn't want to use it, I think, like I did, scratched my head and said, well, yeah, maybe that could be. That's possible. So we decided that we would head down the medical marijuana road. Well, it's pretty hard to introduce a new medicine into a community. And we found out that medical marijuana was an impossibility because of the necessity for testing, and it's a very expensive proposition to put it up. So the next thing we were told was, well, we could have a new industry. We could have the cannabis industry, and we could make marijuana available to everyone, those who needed it for medicinal purposes, those who needed it for recreational purposes, and it would be a new industry. Now, the word industry, I think, was tossed around rather loosely. I don't see we're heading towards any kind of a new industry. Are we going to have large marijuana plantations, harvest the marijuana and export it? Is that what our industry is going to be? I don't think so. But anyhow, the propaganda was pretty effective. So a referendum to legalize marijuana was passed. But like so many products that come out of the legislature, then the next thing was implementing legislation. And that's where Clint came along. Clint came along with the implementing legislation that required extensive rules and regulations to get the project off the ground. So the lazy drafter's way of putting together a bill is to put together a skeleton and then say that the agency that is in charge of the endeavor described in the bill shall have the power to make rules and regulations for the implementation of the bill. So all of the heavy lifting is shrugged off, oftentimes on people who aren't able to handle the heavy lifting, the making of rules and regulations.
Sounds like that game we used to play as a kid with Mad Libs, where you fill in the adverb and the verb.
Yeah.
And hilarity is always the result.
Hilarity, exactly. Which a little off the subject, but I read the expose of Hilario Baldwin. Have you read about that?
No, I haven't.
Hilario Baldwin.
Is that the wife of one of the Baldwin brothers?
Alec Baldwin, yeah. Hilario Baldwin says she is born in Spain and speaks Spanish.
I hope so.
She was born in Boston, and she's been to Spain on vacation.
Oh.
And the cancel culture has gobbled her up. Anyhow, so the heavy lifting is left to the rules and regulations part of the deal. And that's where we are now, trying to put together these rules and regulations. So we have a problem between two parts of our community. One part of the community is saying, yeah, maybe three parts of the community. One part is saying, yeah, I really want to do it. I want to be able to smoke marijuana. I want to destigmatize. Another part of the community says, marijuana, whatever, one way or the other. And then a third part of the community is saying, not in my backyard. Don't bring any of your marijuana trappings down to Tucumán. We don't want people down there smoking it, selling it, buying it, advertising it. Do it somewhere else. Because if you allow marijuana to come down here, you're going to cost us billions of dollars. You're going to ruin our tourist industry. Now, the guys on the Cannabis Control Board, you just heard Clinton saying, well, you should have said that sooner. And you're disagreeing with your own survey. So Clint hasn't come out and said this, but he wants, apparently, his position is that there should be no prohibitions to, let's just talk about marijuana trade. We'll invent a new term. Marijuana trade means smoking it, buying it, selling it, advertising it, whatever. Clint keeps saying your objection to marijuana trade in Tucson is ill-founded. That's what he keeps saying. Okay, so let's stop and examine this. Let's look at the position of the Guam Visitors Bureau. They're saying that if the marijuana, what term did I say? Marijuana trade, yeah. If the marijuana trade comes to Tucson, it's going to cost us millions of dollars, okay? If the Visitors Bureau is right, it hurts us all because it's going to cost us millions of dollars. If the Visitors Bureau is wrong and it doesn't cost us millions of dollars, who does it hurt? No one, right? So if we follow the Visitors Bureau lead and we don't allow the marijuana trade in Tucson, and it turns out that the Visitors Bureau was wrong, but we'll never find out about that because we've kept it out, who does it hurt? No one. So if you're going to use the Pascal wager analysis on it, it's better to go with the Visitors Bureau and say we don't want marijuana trade in Tucson, because even if they're wrong, the damage to the other two groups is somewhere between slight and non-existent. Doesn't hurt group number 2 at all, the people who kind of don't care one way or the other. And for group number 1, the folks that want to destigmatize marijuana, you can still do it everywhere in the island except that one little area. So I would do this. I'll say maybe Clint has got the better argument, but the Visitors Bureau's got by far the better position. So I'm back in the Guam Visitors Bureau on this. Clint, let it go. Let the Cannabis Control Board exclude the marijuana trade from the Tucson area, which it appears they might be doing because they want to find out exactly where the H zone is. So if they want to ban it in the H zone, they want to find out exactly where that is. Okay, so next on my agenda here is I have an outfit called a Stack VIP, and it works. It worked.
I got it back up again.
Yeah. Well, the Stack VIP stopped working for a little while, and Jose and I were wondering why would this high-tech gear stop working? And then I asked, Jose sent me a note as to who was on the line, and that explained everything. Yeah. The most dangerous man in the room. There hasn't been anything digital that the most dangerous man in the room can't hack with half his brain tied behind his back. There's no cyber criminal in the world that doesn't quake in his boots when he hears the name Nelson. Carl Nelson.
And things seem to blow up 10 seconds after he leaves the room.
Exactly. Well, what can you tell me about marijuana, Carl?
Before I get into that, I just want to tell you I'm calling from Tucson, and I'm disguised as one of the bushes down there.
It's a good thing you told us because we'd have never spotted you in a million years.
If you're disguised as a tree.
Bush, if you see a bush shuffling along and moving from one location to another, that's probably me.
All right.
Yeah, just a little bit about marijuana. My son, before he entered the Air Force, he was briefed about marijuana, and he was warned. They said, be careful who you stay around because you breathe this stuff in. Even if you don't smoke it yourself, a doobie, put it to your lips, you're still inhaling this stuff if people around you are using it. And if you inhale enough of that to test positive, you're out. Your career is over. So they're not joking. I mean, they will kick you out. So he was given the warning, just be careful. You know, not only do not smoke it, but do not hang around people that are smoking it, especially in an enclosed space like a car or a room. Once you smell that, just make some distance, get some distance. But anyway, I just thought I'd insert that as a potential career killer for military people.
Well,
I wanted to call.
Go ahead.
Well, you wanted to comment about that. I wanted to make one not related comment, so I'll let you comment about what I said.
Go ahead, Carl, after you.
Okay, well, I actually wanted to call in yesterday about your comments you were making about Marxism, neo-Marxism, and you gave a long list of Marxist offshoots. Long list. I've seen a similar list. But I wanted to call in because I had watched a very interesting interview by Dr. Paul Kengor, who has written and done extensive studies on communism. And that's important because socialism, which the radicals in America are striving toward, Marx said that socialism is a precursor to communism. That was his ideal movement. He felt that was inevitable, that history moves inevitably in a certain direction, and there's feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and then the ultimate is heaven on earth, the social justice utopia, which is communism. So that applies today, and he gave a couple of quotes I found really interesting from the Communist Manifesto, which is like I don't know if you'd call it the Constitution for the communists and the Marxists.
Fair enough.
Which explains a lot about what is going on today in America. One of them is in about the last couple of paragraphs of the Communist Manifesto. Marx writes, they, or communists, openly declare that their ends can only be attained by the forcible overthrow of all existing conditions. And then another really revealing quote, also from the Communist Manifesto. In short, the communists everywhere support every revolutionary movement against the existing social and political order of things. So regardless of people who are destroying things and burning down buildings, regardless if they call themselves Marxists or communists, it doesn't matter. The communists support what they're doing. The Chinese Communist Party totally is on board because they are destroying, especially Western industrialized democracies. They're totally for that. So I really found those two quotes very revealing about what we're seeing today in America and why the Chinese Communist Party would be so interested in supporting those destructive things going on. Anyway, I just wanted to toss in those two illuminating quotes from the Communist Manifesto.
Good comments, Carl. I'm glad you brought those up today. It would have been nice if you had done it yesterday, but you were probably off on a secret mission somewhere, right?
Yeah, I was indisposed.
Okay. Good talking to you, Carl. We'll talk to you again next year, okay?
All right. See you next year.
Okay, let's head for Louisville, Kentucky. I got a tip. Actually, the most dangerous man in the room slipped me a note. Yeah, he said that if we go to Louisville, Kentucky, I might find another Joe wandering around in Churchill Downs. So let's check it out, Jose.
Did you know your smartphone is one of the most powerful tools in our fight against COVID-19? That's why we're bringing you the Guam COVID Alert Exposure Notification app. Developed by Google, Apple, and the PathCheck Foundation, the app works by letting you know if you've been exposed to someone who's positive. It's completely voluntary, and more importantly, it's anonymous. Add your phone to the COVID fight. Go to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download it from the App Store or Google Play now. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu.
$5 foot long. High with veggies.
They're back. Any foot long is a $5 foot long when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are, Louisville, Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs. And who do I see in a box seat right at the finish line of Churchill Downs? It's none other than, it's Joe. Let's see, is it? No, it's not Joe. It's another Joe. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Hey, Bob. Again, another happy Merry Christmas Day to you and Happy New Year, because tomorrow's everyone's on holiday, so I was going to say it's going to be a 3-day weekend, but
no happiness for us.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 days too many days for you, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll see you all Monday, bright and early, or at the
1600.
So I want to chime in on this marijuana industry thing. It's it's kind of a clueless expression. I don't know that there's a plan. I don't know if they're educating people on a plan for this, and they keep pushing the envelope, this movement, and I guess Democrat supporters. No one is emphasizing the medical marijuana aspect. For whatever reason.
Well, I'll tell you what the reason is. It's very easy. There'll never be a medical marijuana industry here because you have to have the elaborate infrastructure in order to make it work. You don't need that elaborate infrastructure for the recreational, which is all that anybody really wanted in the first place. So it was a classic bait and switch. Hey, look over here how miraculous medical marijuana is, and we could do this and we could do that. Oh, it's really miraculous, but we can't do the infrastructure. But here's another way we could do the same thing. That's how it happened.
It would be interesting if we could find a way to do the infrastructure, because I think the FDA needs to be a strong partner of ours, and the only way to do that is to have the infrastructure. I think maybe.
Well, that's what I said at the very beginning. If that were the case, then my solution was, let's see if we could get the Congress to change Schedule 1, take marijuana off Schedule 1, so the research could be conducted, and if it has valid pharmaceutical properties, and we know how to deal with it. We got a Food and Drug Administration. We bring new drugs to the market all the time. We should have done that. Yeah. But that wasn't what the folks here were interested in at all.
See, the impression I got, Bob, not so much to legalize the marijuana as much as to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of it. That's the impression I had.
Well, that already happened. That happened before the referendum.
There was a referendum?
Yeah, a referendum that the people voted in favor of legalizing marijuana. But before that, possession of small amounts of marijuana was only a violation.
We had a referendum, come on?
Yeah.
Or did they just vote on it because they have the majority?
Yeah, we had a referendum on marijuana.
Huh. I'm confused about the whole thing. I think we need to revisit it. We need to have a dialogue, and we need to have our comfort level improved in this because I don't believe for a moment that it's completely victimless, and we need to find a way to regulate that and make sure that people are not victims or harmed because it's very lucrative. I just want more people to be more serious about it. I don't want them to be like silly or juvenile about it. That's what I prefer. It just seems as though they're so partisan and insistent, and I just wish there was more of a meeting of the minds in it. Anyway, Kababa, I'll let you continue with what you all were bringing up, and thanks for your time. And I'll see you all in 3 days, or hear you all in 3 days.
Well, I'll tell you what, another Joe, I'll see you next year.
All right, in 3 days.
Next year, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to wind up this year talking about marijuana or cannabis. When Tall Tales was on another radio station before it came to where it really belongs, there was a caller who would call in and tell me that the correct word was cannabis, not marijuana. Cannabis. Well, which sounds better, cannabis or marijuana? And it goes back to this idea that the use of marijuana has been stigmatized over the years. Even its proponents will tell you that it's been stigmatized. And you'd think that the movie Reefer Madness, which I've seen, it's interesting, but you'd think that the movie Reefer Madness was watched by every single person in the United States 5 times to the point that everyone got brainwashed by it. And that the enlightened folks would come along and tell you that, you know, marijuana is no worse than alcohol. A lot of ways, it's better than alcohol, you know, good reason, all the reasoning, etc. So, you know, we really ought to legalize medicinal marijuana. I just went through that bait and switch routine. So we wound up now with legal recreational marijuana with Clint's statute that leaves all of the really hard work to the Cannabis Control Board that's been doing what is essentially legislative work for the last year. And I got to hand it to them. They're pretty diligent at the way they're attacking this whole thing. You know, what kind of manure should we use to fertilize the marijuana plants?
One that doesn't waft.
Yeah. And the whole tourism, conflagration, et cetera. But I still come back to my Pascal's wager analysis. And I haven't heard Clint come out and say, and of course he's the one that is talking about promoting the industry. I think it's just a misuse of the word industry. I don't see that we're going to have an industry on Guam dealing with marijuana. But I haven't heard Clint come out and say the rules must not prohibit, must not prohibit the marijuana trade in Tumon. I haven't heard him advocate that the marijuana trade should be entered into Tumon. I've heard him say people shouldn't argue for that. He's been very critical of the Visitors Bureau on that score. But I'd like to have someone stick a microphone in his face and say, Clint, are you saying that we should have the marijuana trade in Tumon? Because he never said that. He's been very critical of the Visitors Bureau. He's had an open position about marijuana. He's quibbled a lot about surveys and things like that. But again, coming back to the analysis, the Pascal's wager analysis, if the Visitors Bureau is right and we do what the Visitors Bureau wanted, we've saved ourselves a tremendous heartache. If the Visitors Bureau's proposition is wrong, but we still do what they want, it doesn't hurt the tourist trade. It doesn't hurt that group in the middle. It doesn't hurt anybody. So Pascal's wager would suggest, Clint, unless you can make a really strong argument that we've got to have marijuana in the tourist area, then you should just shut up and say, well, I won the argument, but let's get back to business. Okay, so we've come to the end of another year of tall tales. Doesn't get any better than that. It's been great, all you tailgaters out there in our international radio listening audience. Let's get together next year. See you then.
And 104.3 HD3.
The FBI says it was deliberate. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The agency says a worker at a Wisconsin hospital admits to intentionally leaving 500 doses of Moderna's vaccine out of the refrigerator. All 57 vials of the vaccine had to be thrown out Saturday. The hospital in Grafton, Aurora Medical Center, fired the worker. No reason given for the sabotage. Senate Democrats and Republicans are at odds over increasing stimulus checks to $2,000. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
We're going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting for this because it's very important. But the quickest, best, and right now, before January 3rd, only way to get it done is to put the House-passed bill on the floor, get 60 votes, and send it to the president who will obviously sign it.
But Majority Leader Mitch McConnell tied the payment increase to two other presidential demands.
McConnell says to get the $2,000 checks, Democrats must also repeal Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which protects big tech companies who censor speech online. The majority leader also wants a bipartisan study examining the integrity and security of the 2020 presidential election.
Fox's David Spunt. Meantime, COVID deaths in the U.S. rose to a record yesterday, with 3,744 dying in just one day. And yet more cases of the variant strain from Britain are detected in the U.S. California Governor Newsom.
We were informed that this new variant, this new strain that we've identified, obviously, from the